Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond, and I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to this 6th season of the show. If you are new to the How Now podcast, welcome to the How Now family. You are officially part of the How Now family. And in order to do that, go to my website, www.hownowpodcast.com. Click on your favorite podcast platform and be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. You can also scroll to the bottom of the page and click on the banner for this week's show, and it will take you to the How Now YouTube channel, where you can like, follow, share, and subscribe as well. You can check out some of my playlists like Tuesday, or Spirit Body Transformation, where I talk about my wellness journey. And you can catch up on the 365-day challenge and all things that are happening in my now. Okay, so again, that's www.hownowpodcast.com. All right, so let's get into this evening's show. This season 6 has been all about a year of execution. Last year, we did the 365-day challenge, and we challenged people to make overall wellness a habit, mind, body, and spirit. And so this year, I have some special co-hosts who will be joining me throughout the year. And one of them is here this evening, and she is going to be talking about all things financial fitness. So before we get into, what we're going to be talking about this evening, I'm going to allow my dear, beautiful co-host to introduce herself at this time.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with your How Now podcast and all of your amazing guests that follow you everywhere. And today's going to be incredible. My name is Leah Garcia. I'm the Dynasty Builder. And truly, I grew up on the east side of San Jose on food stamps and welfare. That's kind of the wrong side of the tracks if you don't know. And even as a little girl, though, I always wanted more. We would go and visit relatives, and they had green grass and pretty cars and shiny houses. And I always thought, why don't we have those things? Right. And I would even ask my parents. I mean, I was a little girl, like 5, 6 years old. And so I always wanted more, and I always believed that I could have more. And I believe that every single one of us, to a person, every little woman out there, every big woman, every small woman, every tall woman, every single one of us to a person has that little girl inside of us. Yes. And we can grow up and we can be anything we want to be, and we can bring our money with us. So let's get into it.
Yes. And this month is, of course, Women's History Month. And so to celebrate that, we thought that we would, talk about surviving and thriving and a woman's role in, helping to make sure that her family is financially fit. There are a lot of women who are single moms, a lot of women who are, the matriarchs of their family. And, it's important that, they're continuing their legacy. So it's important for us to find ways in which to, make sure that our families are stable and that we're building wealth within our families. And so, in honor of Women's History Month, we are going to be talking about that, surviving and thriving, as the matriarchs of our families. So, like you said, let's dive in and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I want to share a few things before to kind of kick it off here. And I do have some notes here, but I thought these were really critical. Do you realize that until 1974, women could not get a credit card on their own? They needed to have a co-signer or a male counterpart. Can you believe that? Think about that. I mean, we've come up, that's only 1974. That's not prehistoric with the dinosaurs.
No, I was 4 years old at the time. Wow.
Listen to these statistics. Women live 5 to 7 years longer average than men. And I'm going to say the women I see, they live longer than that, okay? 80% of women will become the sole responsibility for their finances at some point due to divorce, widowhood, or being single.
Yeah.
Many women spend years as caregivers, which interrupts their earning and retirement contributions. Let me say that again, because we're the caregivers. We're not out there contributing and being able to open up retirement accounts and add to our Social Security. This is a big, big deal.
Yes, it is.
42% of U.S. businesses are now women-owned. Whoop, whoop. I love that. It's the fastest growing sector, and women control over 80% of the household spending decisions.
Yes. Yes.
So this is a very big deal. The conversation we're going to have. I say, you know what, we gotta be women and hear us roar, but we gotta roar loudly and we gotta roar confidently when it comes to our money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said, those are critical numbers, and those are things that we have to keep in consideration when we're talking about our finances and the importance. And then, like you said, also to address the limitations, because just like you said, there were certain things that were not available or accessible to us. And now, we're looking at 2026, and there are still some limitations that are taking place, but we know that there are also opportunities. Like you said, 40+% of women are now owning their own businesses, and well, I recall when I was in my doctoral program, I was doing my dissertation on talking about female, African-American female entrepreneurs. And talking about how their businesses were not lasting past 4 years in certain circles. And so being able to see how things have changed since COVID, and since, funding sources have changed, there are some things that have changed, but there are still a lot of things that we need to work on. But, those numbers are critical. I think of my grandmothers. One lived to 105, the other lived to 90. So, they were here being the matriarchs of their family for years when my grandfathers passed away. And so, yes, just like you said, passing the torch and thinking about them being born in the 1920s and not being able to have opportunities. They were housewives at the time. They didn't work outside of the home. And so there were a lot of things to make sure that they had in place, to keep the family going, so it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot.
Yeah. And think of all the changes. If somebody lives to be 100 years old, think of all the changes that they've experienced. And now we expect them to know what AI is and how to log on. I mean, their whole world is just completely shifted. So I have a lot of respect for anyone who lives, who's blessed enough to be able to live on this earth for those type of years. That's incredible.
Yes. And like you said, and to have homes and to be able to carry the torch, for their families. It's so critical. And then we're also looking at people, we talked in a previous show about healthcare and the importance of that. There are just so many layers to peel back when we're talking about surviving and thriving and being able to create legacy and to create wealth with our families, especially when a lot of our homes are being run by women.
Yeah. And I would say the women that I work with or that I've seen oftentimes, they're usually the better savers over the men. However, they're the most timid, reluctant investors.
You're right.
So we're good at squirreling money away, which is great. I love that. But we have to also be willing to grow that money. And that's why I love to talk about wealth without risk. We've been taught that you have to risk your money in order to grow your money. Right. So if you do your research, you could actually have opportunities where you can feel confident. And I want all of our women to feel confident about investing and growing our money, because otherwise our money's in cardiac arrest, right? It ain't growing. It's just kind of going to doing this kind of thing. And that's not good, because we definitely won't have an opportunity to retire or even build a family dynasty if we're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind being transparent, as my financial advisor. I had looked at, I worked in the field of education, and I've stepped out of that arena and am in the corporate arena, and did not even remember that I had, a teacher retirement that had just been sitting dormant for years before I received a letter saying, hey, what are you doing with this money? And I was like, what money? I had totally forgotten. I had left the school system and did not remember that I had been, paying into that. And then when I left, I was no longer paying into it, but it was still there and it was dormant. And so it's amazing how sometimes we miss those little things. We miss opportunities, to roll over or invest money that we didn't even remember that we had. And I didn't even remember that. I was so busy trying to take care of my family and moving on to the next thing. I didn't even realize that I had an opportunity to shift that money and have it work for me all of these years later. And it's been at least 15, but it's been at least, oh my goodness, at least 6 or 7 years, let's say.
Right. And you're not exclusive to just you. That is very typical. Most of the time when people come to me and they have retirement accounts, they think that they may have, and we're looking for them, it almost is always a woman. I would say 8 out of 10 times it is a woman.
Wow.
Because I just think we've all got a lot on our plate. Okay, let's be real.
Right.
But I would say a lot of times too, women do a lot of interruption in their career. They may have a career. They may take some time off to raise a family. They may take off time to be a caregiver. So they very often have pockets of money that is just sitting there dormant and it's being unattended. We don't want our money unattended. That's not good.
Right. And I think what happens is sometimes we also, we look at, they say, well, be careful when you're investing. I'll go back to old school. We used to have like the little VALIC, and they would always say, make sure that you don't invest too, don't be moderate. Don't be aggressive in there, because you're older and you don't want to, aggressively invest your money, and be careful. And I think that kind of, lack of education made me kind of fearful to even do anything. I was like, okay, let me just play it safe and just put the minimum in there and don't do anything too aggressive, because then, you may lose big. And, but at that time, I started with the school system when I was 18 years old. That was probably an ideal time to be aggressive with it. And I don't think that I took opportunities in doing that. And I think a lot of it comes from the lack of financial education. Right. that was available, or that I thought was not available to me, that may have been. I didn't know the questions to ask.
Yeah. And really it comes from that confidence and really finding the person that you feel confident working with. I can't stress that enough. It doesn't matter what reviews you see. We want to feel good with that person because they're going to learn a lot of things about you. So if you don't feel like you would invite them into your home, that's probably not the right person for you to be working with. Interview quite a few people so that you feel that they understand what is important to you. These should be customized solutions. If you feel like you're getting a one-size-fits-all cut and paste, then you could probably look somewhere else. Okay, I'll just say that. Take another look.
And that's good, because just like you said, and we've said in the past, you do business with people like, and trust. And you definitely want to do that, especially when it comes to your finances. I am that person who is like, me and my finances are not soon parted. So I'm like, wait a minute, what are we going to do? And how much is this going to cost me? And how are we going about this? And what are the steps? We have to, like you said, be brave in asking the questions, so that way we're getting the right type of how do I say it? We want to get the right type of individualized package that's going to work best for our finances and for our situation where we are, and I think, it's difficult at times for people to say, okay, you have to be honest. You have to be honest about your expenses. You have to be honest about your financial snapshot, because at the end of the day, that person is going to be able to go in and see your background, and it's going to paint the picture without you even saying the word. So, it's best to be honest and to find somebody who you trust.
First, I want to give you a shout out for saying financial snapshot. Whoop, whoop. You're learning the language. I love it. And really, so this was never, I don't think, a challenge for you. You're very inquisitive and you are a great note taker and you always ask questions. But I would say for a lot of women, that even if you say, I don't know where to start, I don't know what I should ask you, then even ask that person, what is the questions I should be asking? What is somebody like me? What have they asked you? What hasn't worked and what has worked for them? And they should be able to kind of tell you kind of where you should be guided towards. Yeah. and at least give you something so that you have some information that you could go back and do your research, right? They should be able to give you some things, give you some websites, give you third-party information so that you could do your own research. Because women, we like to research. Okay, that's just how it is. That we are. That's the way we're
anything,
which is great. So if that person can guide you to those things, and then you can do your research and read, and then you have a comfort level, because we're not saying you have to know every single thing before you invest, but you should be able to kind of explain it like you're 5 years old, right? Not so that you have a basic understanding, because an educated client to me is a happier client long term.
Absolutely. And one thing that you said that's so critical, and that I want people to make sure that they heard, is that you said you give them an opportunity to gather third-party information and to do their own investigation. So it should not be something that you're pressured into doing. They shouldn't say, okay, you're working with me and I need an answer today. You need to tell me right now what you're going to do. Which credit card do you want to use? And you're just like, wait a minute. They should give you enough space to feel comfortable to make the decision without feeling pressured. Because I think that's a big thing too. If I'm feeling pressured, I'm feeling like you're not giving me enough time to really think about this, or to weigh my options, or to, and a person who is confident in their ability to assist me is going to say, yeah, I want you to go out there and look, and I want you to research and realize that, okay, I may be the person for you. I may be the person that you're not going to be fearful in that. And with your level of comfort, that gives me comfort, because you have confidence. Now I'm like, okay, if that person is confident in what they're selling and what they're telling me is, would be a decent package for me, I'm going to listen a little closely, as opposed to somebody who I feel is pushing me up against the wall.
That's a great point. We all hate salespeople, right? We all love to buy, but we all hate to be sold. Right. We want to feel like this is really something that's custom tailored to us. They're addressing our biggest concerns and can explain it to us in a way where we don't feel like we're being, talked down to. Right. But we want it in a palatable way so that we can at least have a good understanding of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And then when we feel comfortable, listen, we tell everybody about it. I have over 1 million views on my Google reviews. I just went and did a review with my daughter. She used to make fun of me. I've been doing Google reviews for years. My daughter used to laugh at me and make fun of me. Mom, why are you writing that down? But people watch my Google reviews. Like So anyway, I'm just saying, we shout people out, right? When we love it,
yes,
everyone know.
That's it. I'll tell anybody from the highest, mountain. That's why you're here, because I know that you have such vital information to share. And so that's why you'll be here joining me every month this year and maybe beyond. We'll see. But that's it. It's being able to educate people so that they're at a level of confidence, because it's about making informed decisions. It's not about making decisions off the cuff or feeling pressurized, or making knee-jerk decisions. Sometimes you have to be able to do that little bit of research and feel confident about what you're doing, especially when it comes to your money, because like I said, people are tight-fisted, especially if you're not making a considerable amount of money. You don't want to be scammed, and there are so many people out here that are so creative in scamming you, and so that lack of trust is already embedded in a lot of people, and so it's even more. And then, like you said, when they feel that pressure, they're just like, you don't want to do anything. And then, analysis paralysis takes place.
That's a great point. I love that you said that. So what I would urge people to do is take little steps, right? So start off with something that's little. If you're starting with investing, maybe start with a small portion of what you have squirreled away, so that you kind of get the learning curve. You kind of see how things work. And somebody who's really worth their weight in salt in the financial industry, they're going to walk you through that. One of my biggest pet peeves, and you and I have talked about this offline, is that when we have a bunch of money, everyone wants to help us. Absolutely. But when we have these little pockets of money squirreled away, nobody wants to talk to us. We don't rate. So find somebody who's going to not just help you when you have big buckets of money, but who's going to be there in the beginning when you've got that little $5,000-$10,000 that you've worked for maybe many years to have that put away. And I always put it this way. Listen, I wasn't there when you put that money aside. but I'm going to be there in the future.
Right.
So you have to make the decision on what feels comfortable for you, because I truly know that once my clients get it, they're going to get it. And it takes a little bit of time. Listen, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. It takes me time. I've got to go through that learning curve. We got to feel a little uneasy. We got to feel a little bit, confused, and that's okay. Yes. It's okay to feel confused. Yes. Sometimes I think that we as adults feel like confusion is something bad.
Right.
Little ones are confused all the time. We give them directions. We have them do spelling tests. They got to get on the bus, and they don't know why they're getting on that bus.
Right.
So it's okay to feel a little bit confused.
Yes.
And then you're going to go through the learning curve, and then you're going to start feeling good and confident.
That's it. And, it's just like the Bible says, we have to be childlike in our thinking. What do children say? What do tears say? Why? Everything is why? We look at millennials. All they're asking is, why are we doing this? And what is that about? We have to get back in the habit of being okay with asking why. Because how can you explain to someone else, or how can you, make an informed decision if you don't ask questions, if you don't, get that level of confusion, out of the way. I can't feel confident in what I'm doing if I'm totally confused, and then I don't know what questions to ask. And that goes across the board, not just with your finances, but with your health and everything else. You have to be able to find the words and have somebody who's willing to break it down into layman's terms for you. So that way, you could speak with confidence, just to be like, well, yeah, it sounded good, but I'm not really sure what that meant after the phone call is over, or after the over. That shouldn't be the case, that you're like, now, what was that again? If you don't know, you should be confident enough to turn around and say, you know what? Yeah, you mentioned that. I'm not quite sure. Can you send me some literature on that? So that way I can follow up with it. We have to be willing to do that. And some of that comes with you got to put that pride aside.
There you go.
We don't like to ask for help. And sometimes for women, it's difficult for us to ask for help too, because we're so used to doing everything and being everything for everybody. But we have to stop it and be informed. That's the biggest thing. Be informed.
Absolutely. And I would add, I love that you said that. It's like, be okay with circling back, asking it again, ask it another way.
Right.
Call them back the next day, next week, next month. Because it takes that saturation.
Yes.
It's that is a mother of learning, right? It's repetition is a mother of learning. So we have to go through that learning curve. Give yourself that grace and understanding, and don't make those snap decisions. Well, I've never heard of that. That doesn't work. So-and-so said this. Some person on TV personality said this about that thing. Give yourself the opportunity to really become a student. Be curious, right? Be that little inquisitive third grader and ask every question. And like I said, if that person doesn't have the patience with you, maybe you find another person, right, who will go for that with you.
Right. And like you said, make sure that person is a professional. Make sure, it's not your, Uncle Leroy or your Aunt Pearl or that. You want to make sure that it's somebody who, knows a little bit about, finances and knows, enough to, answer those tough questions, or those questions that go beyond the layman's terms. We want somebody who has been in the field and has a familiarity and can give you some options, and not just tell you that one way is the only way.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing.
And I would say for women, especially if you're currently in a relationship and that your partner does the finances, then I would say to be very, very vigilant. Have your own credit cards that are just in your name. Also have your own retirement accounts or some type of investment account, even if it is a smaller amount of money, so that you are getting dipped into what all investments are about, what you like, what you don't like. And also, this is I know it's a little controversial. I'm going to get a little pushback on this, but I want you to be involved in your family finances. Even if your significant other handles it all, you trust them, you have a wonderful relationship, because this is a phone call that is really so disheartening for me that I get. It's a phone call from the 70-something, the 80-something, the 60-something. They have no idea what happened, where their money is, or significant other has passed away, or they're divorced, and now they're trying to figure out where are the accounts. They don't know how much money they have, And oftentimes that discovery is a very unpleasant conversation.
Yes, it is.
So you want to be involved in what is going on. You want to know enough
Right.
so that you can feel like you're a part of the process. Even if, somebody else makes the final decision,
Right.
at least be there and ask some questions so that you can be part of the learning curve together.
That is so critical. I am so glad that you said that, because just like I was saying, I had a 90-year-old, 105-year-old grandmother. And when my grandfathers passed away, they were the ones who handled the bills, and they had to learn, okay, where was this and that. What was good is that, both of them did ask the questions. They did have, conversations with my grandfathers about, okay, well, where does this go, and which bank do we bank at, and where, and how do we pay this, and who, you have to ask the questions. You have to be a part of that, because just like you said, there are some who are just clueless. I have another friend who is in her 70s. Her husband passed away last year, and she had no idea how to even go about paying the utilities. She had no idea. And so it's so important to be a part of it and to ask the questions. Yes, that person may deal with that. And, if you don't know, make sure that your children know, so they can assist you with that. They're younger, they know about how things have changed, and may be able to help you as you're going through that process. But you have to ask the questions. It should never be, like you said, that you don't know anything about your finances, your accounts, or anything. And so that way, when it comes time to lay that person to rest, your significant other, you don't even know where the funds are. You don't even know what insurance policies or anything. You should never be in the dark about things that are dealing with you. And then you got so many blended families and people who are remarrying. I've learned a lot. I have been remarried and had to learn about those things and how that works with things that were, mine prior to being married, and things that we've, collected, during our marriage. Those are all kinds of questions that need to be asked and answered, so that way, when it comes time to, when you're getting in your older years, you know what's happening, what's going on, where things are being dispersed. And it eliminates so many of these family disputes that we hear about repeatedly. People are finding out afterwards, oh, you didn't know, and well, where's this? And everybody's looking for it. You have to be transparent with your family members, your children, your spouse, about those things that are important to you. So when they're not here, that person knows how to how to move, how to navigate.
Yeah, that's a mic drop moment. You brought your golden nuggets for sure. I mean, that is so critical.
Yes.
And we don't want to leave a mess for our family. So if we don't have those conversations, if they don't know where the policies are, if they don't know where your bank accounts are, they don't know what's going on with your estate plan, you don't even have an estate plan, now you're going to probate, that leaves a disaster, and it leaves a lot of hurt and bitter feelings, because they have to assume what your wishes are. They have to assume that they understood. The worst thing that I see happening is that there is no financial plan. They didn't have the life insurance they said. Their retirements weren't what they said. And now the family's trying to piece together and having to do a fire sale because they're having to go through probate. And that's really disheartening, because you lived all of those years, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years. And you know what? That's a legacy that they're going to remember.
Right.
They're not going to remember those little trips to Disneyland. They're not going to remember those wonderful birthday parties. They're going to remember the thing that happened at the end. Right. Oh yeah, so-and-so passed away, and you know what? Then her kids were fighting. They haven't spoken to each other since then. Like that, we don't want to leave that.
Right. That is not the legacy that we want to leave. We don't want to leave disruption and chaos within our families, because we, like I said, we didn't handle our affairs while we were here. And there are just so many of us out there who don't have those plans in place. And we really, it's so important that we do that. Tomorrow is not promised. And there are many people who are not living long. Oh, I'll do it later. There are people who are checking out of here a lot sooner than they anticipated. Some of it has to do with health reasons and things like that. And so if we're not taking care of ourselves, all the more reason for us to make sure that our financial affairs are in order, because we don't know. Mortality really sets in when you start seeing people in your age range, starting to, pass away. And you're just like, wait a minute, that person is the same age as I was. Wait a minute, what's going on? We really have to be vigilant and making sure that we're looking at our finances now. And if you're younger, that you start looking at ways to, build on that before you get to the age of some of us and go, oh, well, now I need to start doing things. And you're missing out on opportunities to really, really expand your wealth.
Yeah, because we really don't know what place we are in the line. We may be having all these plans. We think we're young. We think we're half time. And then an accident happens, a car accident or something happens unexpected, a major diagnosis. And now I've had this happen with clients who've been given weeks to live.
Right.
And it's just too overwhelming to deal with it. So deal with this when you can be calm, when things are great. You can have a glass of tea. You can get a glass of wine. You can put on some lovely music and have conversation before things become a 911. And something you kind of alluded to that I really want us to talk about. And this one's hard. This is a tough one. But I didn't come here for rainbows and puppy dogs. I came here to give you the real deal. Gloves off, pull back the curtain. We got to talk about long-term care.
Yes.
Long-term care is the last element that people ever think about, and it is the number one cause of financial devastations for people who are in retirement. Mm-hmm. They think that they can self-insure. They think that Medicare pays for that. They think that, they're just going to stay home. They'll have their nieces or nephews take care of them. And let me tell you, all of those plans have major holes in them. We can break them down one at a time here. Okay?
Let's do it.
If you are depending on your family, if you think you're going to depend on your family, what happens to their income if they're caretaking for you? What is going to happen to their household? That's right. Now that means that somebody has to replace their income. Right. And by the way, I want you to really understand this. This is so hard to grasp, but it is so true. It's that if your family member is taking care of you, they can almost become, not outwardly, but almost resentful, because now they can't go to the birthday parties. They can't go to Tahiti. They can't retire the way that they wanted to. They've got to sell their house or something to make accommodations and provisions for you. And even though they are doing it out of love, now you're asking them to take themselves out of their life and put their things on hold. Is that really fair?
Right.
And I put it this way. Hope I'm going to ask for grace in advance. But the last vision we want of our children, the last thing we want is for the last memory that we have with them is that they are having to take us to the toilet and wiping our that's not the we have the memories of going and doing the things and the stories and the ice cream and the Tahiti and all that. We don't want to have those kind of memories. So please, I implore you, if your family member is going to be a caretaker, please have a support for them. Please have a financial plan for them. Please make sure that they get respite and they're not solely dependent. You're not solely dependent on them, because that can be a real difficult. It doesn't end well. Let's just put it that way.
That's right. That's right. And it's difficult to ask somebody to stop their entire life to take care of you. And just like you said, long term, some people, they say, oh, that person's only given weeks to live. And then you go and you say, okay, well, I can do this for a couple of weeks. Then that person, beats the odds. We've been praying for them and they beat the odds. And next thing 5 years later, you're still taking care of them. And now you're sitting there like, okay, when is this person going to drop so I can have my life back? You hate to say it that way, but that's what people,
we're talking real here. We're talking
real. There are people who are sitting there like, oh, is this person ever going to pass away? Oh my goodness, because I want my life back. It's so, it's such a real conversation, and we've seen it happen. And so, and that's why we say it. And, I don't say it, in jest. I say it because it's something that is happening. It is reality. There are so many, children that are having to take care of their aging parents after they've raised their children, and their children have gone on to college and have started their lives. And they're finally at the point where they're ready to, kick back and enjoy some of the fruits of their labor. And now they're having to pick up another mantle and have to care for people. And it's a lot to ask people to do. And so just like you said, there has to be respite. There has to be a break for them at some point. And, you know, especially if you're an only child or you have a sibling who does not live nearby, then that becomes a challenge. It just becomes a big, you know, situation. We'll just say it becomes a situation. And you know, and those who are caring for the person, they're losing out, like you said, on income, you know, and things may not have been financially, you know, sound when they were going into this. They may have been, you know, financially strapped, and now they're having to take on another responsibility. And just like you said, it doesn't end well. You know, the planning has to take place. We're seeing too much of a trend in people having to take care of their family. So what are they doing to prepare for that?
That's right. In addition to that, you know, them starting at some point to feel a little bit of resentment or just not feeling like they could do it long term. In addition to that, what happens if something happens to them? Now they become ill. Who is going to care for them? So it just becomes a real domino. I say family caregiving rarely ends well. Please don't rely on that 100%.
Right.
Then we talk about Medicaid. Well, Medicare does not pay for long-term care, only in certain situations up to 100 days. Medicaid will pay for it if you become destitute. And, you know, then we talk about the spend down and all these kinds of things like that. But don't assume that the government is going to care for you. Let me ask you a question. Sure. What does the government do well that you would like the government to do for you? Gee, I don't know. Did they spend money well? Maybe, probably not. I mean, what are they doing well that we say, okay, here you go. Take care of you want them to raise your children? No, we don't want to depend on the care that we probably would get from the government program. It's probably not the highest care. Let me just say that. It's not going to be the care that you would like for yourself or for your loved ones. So if that's the only thing you have, and you don't have any money and you don't have any assets, then it is what it is. But if you do, don't depend on that for your long-term care needs.
Yeah. I mean, and you, to your point, you know, it's important that, you know, like you said, you have some life insurance, some type of, you know, system in place for that, for your care, because just like you said, there's no guarantee that your health is going to, you know, always be, you know, at its best. And if it's not, make sure that you have a life insurance plan in place so that way, when things start to happen, or when care, you know, is the option, that you're not putting somebody else in the place of having to do that caregiving. What can your life insurance or what can your policy do to assist or to alleviate some of that off of that person who may be your primary caregiver?
Yeah, that's when we talk about life insurance with living benefits. There's actually life insurance that has a long-term care rider. I love that. One of my favorite things to do. Pennies on the dollar. Just did a quote for somebody. I think she's born in 76, 400,000. She's in pretty good health. It's going to be right about $500 a month. So, you know, but we're talking about life insurance with the long-term care, customized to everybody. I just think that everyone needs to have long-term care, some type of benefits for long-term care. And then we talk about self-insuring. A lot of very, very public, well-known financial gurus say self-insure. I'm not going to gently push back. I'm going to push that over the ledge. Okay. If you're thinking about self-insuring, then you need to consider squirreling away about $350,000 in today's dollars. Wow. So if you're going to be using that today, you need about $350,000 in benefits. And if that's you and a spouse, you probably need $500,000.
Wow.
In today's dollars. And if you think you're not going to need it today, you're probably going to need it somewhere down 10, 20, 30 years, and you have to adjust for inflation because things will cost more.
Right.
So if you're comfortable eking out $500,000 for you and your spouse out of your portfolio, then maybe that could work. But I've seen that go awry too.
Right. That is insane. It is insane. So like you said, it's a matter of educating yourself and figuring out what it is that you need to do first. You have to, put one foot in front of the other. I know it's a lot of information, and sometimes we get analysis paralysis and we just want to stop and just not do anything. But there is something that we need to do. So far, we've been talking about, over these last couple of months as we started the new year, we talked about, financial planning and seeing where you're at so that you know where you're going. We talked about life insurance and the importance of having insurance and being insured. And now we're talking about that surviving to thriving. It's so important that we take some steps, that we begin to, acknowledge that, okay, I'm not in a good financial space. What do I need to do to get from this point of just surviving, of living paycheck to paycheck? Because it does not end well. I have a friend who, recently got a higher degree, got a doctorate, and her position phased out.
Wow.
And so, here it is. You've gotten to the pinnacle, you've gotten to a good space, and now you're in a space where you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And a lot of time has passed, and now you're, wondering, okay, what's going to be my next step? And so, we've got to, put ourselves in a position to where we have some savings and we're not just stuck, and there are a lot of us who are just one paycheck away from poverty. And that's the reality.
It is. And I would say this, if you're going to be going back to school, please be really aware of how much you're getting in student loans. It almost becomes like it doesn't matter just to get the degree. But then I meet with families who want to retire and they have $300,000, $400,000, $600,000 in student loans, and those don't go away. You have to really have a specialist, which I have a specialist for you if you've got that. Student loans have definitely got you.
Yes.
But you've got to be aware of those dollars at some point are going to come back, right? It's a boomerang. You're going to toss it out there. I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this degree, but those student loans are going to come back. And at some point they may come back at a time that is not the most optimum for you.
That's right. And life happens. And sometimes you have to, depart from that program that you have been paying into. Okay. I can speak transparently about that. I had to leave my doctoral program. That was a lot, because life lifed. Okay. Things happen. And sometimes you have to make pivots. That doesn't mean that they're going to say, oh, well, you don't owe us anything more. That's okay. No, they're coming for their money. And if you're a person who did Parent Plus, you were helping your child out. And so now your child is debt free, and now you've taken on their finances. So yes, it can skyrocket and escalate into something that you think, they're going to throw a ticker tape parade when I finally pay off my student loans.
And I have got to highlight this comment that you just tossed out there. This is a big one. Please, please, please highlight this. Put a gold star. This is a gold bar. Please do not sign student loans for your children. I know we wanted to work. I get it.
Right.
But there are programs that they can take the responsibility of, and they can put it in their name, and you can help them make the payments. You can support them, do it that way.
Right.
But there's no safety net for retirement. So if you forego your retirement plan, don't put money away, you don't squirrel money for yourself, and you're doing that for your children, guess what? They're going to go on and get that degree or not get the degree, and you're going to be stuck holding the bag. Okay. Right. And by the way, that bag is heavy.
Yes, it is.
No way. It's
sometimes when you try to go on payment plans, they don't include that in there. Sometimes you're like, nope, we don't count that. That's a different account. And you're just like, what? Here it was. You thought you were helping, but in trying to help your child, you hurt yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And then when we talk about, leaving that dynasty.
Yes.
And I would say this, I'm going to give myself a little shout out. If you're not sure where to start, download my free ebook, The Wall of Wealth. It is a systematic roadmap so you can start to see where those gaps are. Okay. Yeah. It's really, really easy. Doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free. And you can identify the areas that are missing in your financial plan. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is that if we're going to leave our family better than we are, which I believe every one of us, that is our fiduciary responsibility.
Yes.
We need to leave our family better than we were, meaning that we've put together an estate plan. We've built something that's going to last beyond us. You know, the Bible says a wise man leaves wealth for his children's children. So if we're just focused on ourselves, to me, that's not wealth. Okay. It just is not wealth. Right. So we have to create something that will at least last to our children. And hopefully, if we do it right, to our children's children. That's building a family dynasty. And it is possible. It is possible for everyone. Do your family financial snapshot. Get your family dynasty together. Get your living trust together. Right. Get your life insurance. Put those together. And if that's the only thing you do, you set up the next generation to have something more than what you had. And that to me is the start, right? It's the start of breaking those generational curses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And just like you said, it's just a matter of taking those initial steps. And I do want to say, like I said, as you're plugging the wall of wealth, make sure that you're looking down here at the bottom of the screen. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen is her website, www.leahgarcia.io, where she has a lot of her programs that she's talking about that are going to help you to get financially fit. It's all a matter of making sure that you're taking steps and that you're strategic in those steps so that way you're starting to build. And it's also important because even as women, we're educators as well. We are the first teacher that our children have. And so, as you're learning and as you're developing your financial strength, make sure that you're sharing that with your children. So that way it's not like you're gatekeeping it for yourself. We want to be able to take that information and to educate our children so that way the legacy continues. It's not just, we're breaking generational curses, but we're also building and making sure that we're educating our children and letting them know this is what I'm doing. Share that information with them so that way we're growing and we're building together. Right?
Yes. Another goal. Oh my gosh, you're just full of goal bars. And yes. So if you are, no matter if you're really confident with money or you're just starting out, involve your children in something, right? Yes. Set up a little spending plan for them. Yes. Give them some kind of allowance, even if it's just a 50 cents. It doesn't have to be huge or anything. Like have them do extra chores, right? That's what my kids did. They wanted extra things. They had to do their chore money. And at the same time, be very aware of how you speak about money in front of your precious children.
Yes.
If you're constantly complaining about the bills, if you're constantly arguing and bickering with your partner about what's happening with, the household and stuff, about the finances, then you're embedding that into their little nervous system. Right. And I understand that things get difficult. I understand that sometimes there's too much month at the end of our money, but be aware and guard that in private so that the children aren't doused in it, right? Like every time we have dinner, we're having this conversation and we're hearing about the credit cards and they're fighting about the mortgage and, just try to protect your little ones from that conversation and then try to involve them in some way, form or fashion. If you're reading a financial book, just let them see you reading the book. It doesn't mean they're going to sit down with Think and Grow Rich with your children.
Right.
Right. But it means that they are seeing that you're evolving and you're growing and you're looking towards your money. Have a little penny jar. I always talk about this. I do this with my beautiful, precious grandson, and he loves it.
Yes.
He looked for pennies before 1982. He knows too. He's 7 years old. We've got a little penny jar. Our goal is to get it all filled up. So maybe you scroll out something like that, or just sit down and maybe just have a conversation about a plan that you're going to do. Maybe in a year, you're going to take a little dinner date to a fancy restaurant that you never go to, or maybe it's a picnic. I don't know. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. Maybe it is a destination that, we're going to save up for the next year or 5 years. And every time you make a decision being, we're not going to buy that right now because remember, we're going to put this dollar or put these $5 towards our destination. And they see that you're being intentional about it. It doesn't matter how much money it is. It really is about the action. So if you want to go to Tahiti and that's in your wheelhouse, great. But you know what? Maybe for me, it was going to Baskin Robbins. Okay.
Right.
We want to go to Baskin Robbins. That was 31 flavors is what it was back in the day.
That's
Okay.
right.
We got
That's
to
right.
take 3 scoops from 31 flavors. So maybe it's something like that. It doesn't have to be something big, but the point is that you're getting your children involved in the conversation. And so when you don't have the money for things, never tell them you can't afford it. You know what? That's just not a priority right now.
Right.
We have other priorities.
Right. Let them understand. It's all about understanding. And if we're at a place of understanding, then, like I said, we're building wisdom. We're giving them opportunities to make decisions based on, being informed about what money does and how it works. They have to understand it, because when you understand it, then you can respect it, and see that, okay, this is a means to an end. Let them understand the connection, because some children don't. So we have some children in these day and times that are all about, privilege. You just give it to me, and they don't understand what what it means and how to build and how to save and the importance of those things. And this is where we're modeling for them. This is where we're educating our children. This is
I don't know how you did it. You dropped another gold bar. What I would add to this is resist the temptation to just constantly swipe the card.
Yes.
Go to the ATM. Take them to the bank.
Yes.
Let them see you pull out some cash. If you're going to go and buy their Hot Wheels, you're giving them 97 cents to buy their Hot Wheels or something, then allow them to handle that dollar bill or those 4 quarters or that $10 bill and do the transaction so that they're aware that you're exchanging this for something else of equal or greater value. And that's really what you're doing, is because otherwise it's like an invisible.
Right.
Oh, swipe the credit card. Oh no, it doesn't work that way. We got to have something behind the credit card, right? Something.
That's right.
And if we don't involve them in that process, then it's really invisible to them. We can talk about going to the bank, but unless they actually see us go to the bank and we go there and get the money out, I understand it takes a little bit of time, but we're talking about our babies, right? Our most precious commodities that we have. They're worth the investment in them so that even if you don't have piles of money, you're still breaking those generational curses because you're pouring wisdom into them that probably wasn't afforded to you.
That's it. I love it. And it's all about that, as we're wrapping things up and talking about Women's History Month and the roles that women play. It's so important for us to see the process and to see the progress. It's so important for us to do that, be able to see how we got here, to be able to show our children and our children's children, hey, we were able to do this. Remember when we went here and now we can go here. Look at it. This is what happens when we take that dollar that we took and we put it in this jar and we did that, so that way they can see the result. It's so important for us to do that, because then that also helps us, because we're just able to solidify the things that we learned. And as we pass them on, we can teach from what we've learned, and that just reinforces what we've learned and just continues to keep us moving in the right direction. So it's a win-win for everyone when we're talking about, getting to that space of just surviving and making it and letting them see the process and to see how we grow, because they're watching us. Our children are watching us. Those who are around us are watching us and seeing how we're moving and seeing how we're moving differently and seeing when things begin to progress and grow. They'll see it. People are seeing things as a result of my savings and doing things differently. They see that I'm moving differently and I'm being a little more strategic. And now they see the benefits of it. Just like it. So you never know who's watching. And who you can educate. Well, hey, what are you doing here? Then I can pass that information along. So like I said, I'm not gatekeeping it. I'm sharing it because it's important for us to be able, as a community, to grow. What did you say about women? We really are a big part of the financial, structure of our society. And so, what are we doing to continue in that? And what are we doing, continuing to do to share that? So I'm glad that you're here as a woman talking about finances and giving us the knowledge and the know-how that we need so that way we can pass those things on. That's what community is about. That's what history is about.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, I love it too. Okay, so like I said, as we wrap things up, make sure that you reach out to Leah. Make sure that you check out her ebook, and when she's talking about the wall of wealth, go to her website, www.leahgarcia.io.
Okay. And I have one little word in closing.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
I say a strong woman knows her worth, but a wise woman knows her net worth.
All right. Now that's the drop. Boom. That's the nugget right there. Okay. You got a whole bunch of nuggets. Make sure you rewind, check them all out. Make sure that you check out the last couple of episodes where she was talking about life insurance, where she was talking about financial tracking and knowing where you are financially. These are all things that we hope that are going to help you to execute as we're going through this new year. This is a year of execution. So let's be about business. Let's be about growth. Let's be about wisdom and doing things that are going to help us to be better versions of ourselves. And so with that, I'm going to say, Leah, thank you so much for being here again. We look forward to seeing you next month, where we'll have some more wonderful nuggets for you all. Okay. Again, make sure you go to the How Now Podcast, www.hownowpodcast.com. Go to my YouTube channel. Make sure you like, follow, share, and subscribe, so that way you always know what's happening in How Now. And with that, I'm going to say that is going to do it for the How Now Podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until we see you all the next time, I say peace.